When you think of the 96 Summer Olympics, one thing is for certain, those female athletes dominated those games and they changed the course of women in sports in America. Now, 25 years later, a new podcast is looking back at the impact of those games. Summer of Gold tells the story of the 96 Olympics by the iconic female athletes who were there. Take a listen to a little bit of it.
Their collective fight for inclusion, fair pay, and equal opportunity set the groundwork for women in sports today and for generations to come.
It was our first glimpse into just how very awesome the women of the United States are.
Love it. Now, the podcast produced by Sue Bird and Alex Morgan, and it's hosted by former figure skater and two-time Olympic medalist Michelle Kwan, who joins us now. Michelle, good to have you back here on Cheddar News. How did you get involved in this podcast? Because this sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I have to tell you, when I was asked, I was like, it's about Summer of Gold's the title. I'm clearly not a summer Olympian. And I was like, do they know that I'm a winter Olympian? But I was like, yes, please sign me up. The podcast talks about the 96 Olympics 25 years ago. I can't believe it, how time flies. And how it was one of the most important summers for women's sports history. It was a summer that WNBA was founded, a time where women's soccer was just breaking through. And it was a time when female athletes really became cultural icons. This is a time to really reflect on where we've come, celebrate where we are now, and how much there's still left to do in terms of the fight for equal pay in women in sports.
Absolutely.
And there are powerful voices in this podcast like Julie Foudy, Kerri Strug, Billie Jean King, Brianna Scurry, and so many others.
I mean, you have like all of the really, really good ones in this. And yeah, the 96 Atlanta games were really big because I remember watching every single moment. I mean, from Kerri Strug's infamous moment to so many others, and we'll get to her in a second. But how do you feel like those games? I know you mentioned you were in the winter games, not in the summer, but how do you sort of feel like those games maybe even impacted your career around them?
To tell you the truth, it really made an impact on me. It was just 2 years before I would qualify at the national championships to the 98 Olympics. So you can imagine from the beginning, from the opening ceremonies to the closing ceremonies, I was glued to the television, from cheering on Julie Foudy, the soccer players, to the basketball players, to the Magnificent Seven. Like watching that moment, the Kerri Strug, with her ankle and her landing and sticking that vault, and then it was like winning the gold. It was just one of those moments that really inspired me and made a huge impact in my life.
Oh, so let's talk about Kerri Strug, because I think that moment is seared in my brain for the rest of my life. Like, I remember, as all of us, watching that live, thinking, is she going to stick this landing? How important is this landing? Please, for the love of all that is holy, stick this landing. But now that we look back at this, and especially now with what just happened with Simone Biles, do you almost have a different perspective now about the pressure that these women were under back then, especially when it's to nail this landing to get the gold medal here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, Tokyo Olympics really highlighted mental health, in its most ugly moments sometimes. Simone struggled and talked about, the twisties and how she was afraid, if she opens up in the middle of her vault, that she could possibly really hurt herself or kill herself. As a female athlete myself, there were times that fear did enter, my mind, doubt, of course, and it's incredible to see the vulnerabilities that were showcased in Tokyo, and talking about them and humanizing Olympians, that they are not these superhuman people, although they do backflips and things that are just superhuman. But mental health is something to be really taken seriously, and for it not to be ignored.
Well, I agree with you. And if anything, do you almost look back at your career and tumultuous times maybe in your career where you thought, I'm either injured, I don't have the mental capacity to do this. How many times in your career did you ever feel like this is just too much for me right now to handle? I mean, you had a lot of pressure and stress on yourself as well.
Countless times. I mean, there were quiet moments when I was in the locker room or in the training facility where you just kind of break down and you just can't see that light at the end of the tunnel, and wonder, are you going to be able to perform under the pressure, under the spotlight, under, millions of people glued to the television, just like in Tokyo. And if the answer is no, I really, applaud the stance that Simone took during those critical moments where she said, this is, I think it's best that I withdraw from the team competition. And, I can only imagine the stress that she was under. And in the interviews I heard, for her to be completely honest and transparent during the media conference and with the media and with the public and with her, voicing what she was going through via social media, showing that vulnerability it's a strength, and being honest with yourself is so important. And if you are able to get to that space where you make that decision, I again applaud the decision that she made, and I can only imagine how difficult that was.
Absolutely. So by the way, I have about a minute or so left with you, Michelle. The Winter Games, by the way, right around the corner. I mean, we just got our Summer Games just recently. 6 months from now, we're getting another dose of the Olympics. How excited are you for us to see, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics again? And is there anybody that you really think we should keep our eye on when it comes to figure skaters? Because that's one of my favorite competitions in the winter sport.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and there's not many positive things that come out of COVID, but the good thing is it's back-to-back Olympics, so it's a nonstop packed excitement. The Paralympics, I hope you guys are all tuning in, is happening right now. But the Winter Olympics in Beijing, it's gonna be so exciting. We have so many incredible skaters, but they still have to qualify and be named to the team. But I have to say, Nathan Chen, who has dominated men's figure skating, is our best bet at winning and taking home the gold. You have Vincent Zhao, who's extraordinary figure skater, and you have Karen Chen, you have Brady Tennell, you have Alyssa Liu, you have all these incredible skaters, but they still have to qualify and be named to the team. Yes. So much, happening in the next, few months in anticipation to February, the Olympic Games. And I know that they're training hard. So I'm crossing my fingers, and I'll definitely be cheering for Team USA.
Me as well. Cannot wait to watch all of it. And the podcast, so exciting as well. Michelle Kwan, former figure skater and two-time Olympic medalist. And you guys can listen to the first 2 episodes of Summer of Gold right now on Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Our thanks to Michelle Kwan for joining us.